Today you'll see a jacket that has quite a few pattern pieces, but it's all good, it's easy to sew. I know those pieces means the fit is amazing. Magenta color in linen. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and today I have a jacket to share. I made it quite a while ago, a couple of months ago, for a monthly Patreon sew along, and this is the Stacie jean jacket from Stacie. Now this is a pattern I've owned for a few years and I made 2 of these in 2019. It's been a real favorite of mine because this style is not boxy at all. It's got a lot of shaping. Last time I made a sleeveless one in a linen mixed with a few panels there of fake leather. Sewing that pleather was a nightmare. I would not sew that type of material again, at least not with this sewing machine. And I made a blue linen version that's really beautiful. For that one, I do have a video on the channel showing you how to sew the collar in easier because I put an extra yoke in there, which means you don't need to do any snips in the collar. It's like a shortcut way to do it. So if you want to see an easier way to sew the collar, I'll leave you the link down below. Otherwise, I didn't feel much sewing at all. I mainly focused on the collar back then. And now I revisited this pattern 3 years later, did the fitting all over again and sewed from start to finish for Patreon. I thought there was a lot of interesting things to see there. Stacie is so nice. You can see the line out there that there's a lot of pattern pieces on the front. You know, on each side, you're going to have 3 pieces, a side, a middle, and a center, which means it's sort of like a double princess seam that comes from the shoulder right here, but have a yoke on the top as well. You know, between this yoke piece and all the panels at the bottom, there are fake flaps, so it makes it look like there's pockets, but there's not. So I think that's great because it just simplifies it a little bit. You're doing a lot of seams and a lot of top stitching, so if you have a little fake pocket in there, I'm not mad. You don't have real pockets in this jacket, which I think is really good because I don't want pockets in jackets like these. At the back, you also have a yoke and you have 3 pieces across the back. So you have seams that incorporate waist studs within the seams. The sleeve is simplified in a way also because it's just a 1-piece sleeve. Some of these patterns have a 2-piece sleeve with a little slit and a cuff, you know, extra things. This one doesn't. It just has a really deep hem allowance, which makes the pattern piece look super long. But then when you fold in all that big chunk of hem, you can fold it up and wear it sort of cuffed, and it's still full length, so I like that. For this one, the collar has the same pattern piece for the inner and the outer collar, which simplifies it, and you have a separate facing to put along the front. Have to interface that, and the technique in the pattern is so easy. It's just the easiest way. A lot of jacket patterns have this technique, and I have a video on the channel showing you how to do that. Now at the bottom, you can see that there's a waistband that goes all the way around. That's something I don't add, and I'll talk about that later with the fitting. In terms of fabric, structured is the best way to go. I wouldn't want to use a drapey fabric for this. It just won't have the structure to hold up all the seams and the top stitching. So denim, linen, cotton twill, corduroy, maybe some drill. Maybe if you have nice like canvas home furnishing fabric that's really soft. The only thing you need to think about though is that in this area, because the facing is not too wide, when you wear your jacket open, you might see a tiny bit of the wrong side of the fabric. So make sure you like the wrong side of the fabric. Now I suggest you don't try to make this with a stretch woven. Use the ones that stretch nothing. And I can tell you from experience, when I've tried to make a jacket with a stretch woven that's designed for wovens, it does really affect the fit. Wovens, 100% non-stretch will be best. I've chosen a linen cotton blend that has a lot of texture in a magenta color. Beautiful color. I love it so much, and that just makes the process happier. At least colors do have that impact for me. They always have. The sizing in Stacie comes from 4 to 30 Australian. They have all their size charts on their website. This one does have an option where you get the file, you can see all the sizes. You can blend sizes if you need to, if you're not one straight size. In the past, I believe I'd made a size 12 or 14. I can't remember. But this time I printed a size 16. And then on the page where it's for the specific pattern, it will tell you how much ease it's got. 3 inches. So then if you look at the body measurements and you know that there's 3 extra inches, you sort of know that the fit is going to be semi-fitted. Being semi-fitted means you're not going to be able to wear a lot of things underneath. You know, this is a single layer jacket. It's not a lined jacket. I wouldn't wear this in the middle of winter with a thick turtleneck or a sweater underneath. I think it's just enough to wear a really light layer underneath. In between weather, that's what this is for, spring or autumn. Now, I mentioned that I didn't want to sew the waistband that goes at the bottom. And I know this because in 2019, when I made my first version that was a wearable muslin, I did take the time to add the waistband. You know, the bottom of the jacket is slightly curved because there's a lot of shaping. I thought the fit was amazing until I put that rectangle waistband, and it just ruined the whole way the jacket fits. Before putting on this rectangle band at the bottom, this wasn't happening. All this weird stuff here and at the back as well. The shaping was really good until I put the band on. This has a curve here on the hem, and then you pop in a rectangle band at the bottom. It just ruins it. Lay really weird at the hem, because when you try to mold a rectangle to a curve, sometimes it just doesn't look right. And that's what I found happened with this one. So I ended up removing that waistband. I ended up with a shorter jacket than intended, you know. And then for my other ones, I've just always decided to lengthen the jacket to compensate from what I'm taking away by not having that hemband there. So let me just show you some really quick length adjustments. I did them across all the pieces. I'm going to show you how I lengthened my pattern pieces for all of them, front and back pieces. Now this there is the edge of the original hem. You would have a waistband there, but I don't want the waistband. What I've added from there is 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters. So from the original edge right here, I just drew a few lines, added my line, and then I took my ruler and just followed the angle that was coming from way up higher. So like this, I didn't curve this out, do anything like that. I just left the same angle, same as the angle on the hips right here. So I didn't make a straight line, I just kept the same angle. The back side piece, it's similar. You can see I've added the length and just kept the hip going in the same angle it was going down. Why didn't I just add a shorten and lengthen line above the original hem to lengthen it? Is because when I make a jacket longer like this, I do want the hip circumference to increase slightly. And that will happen naturally if you just follow the curve like this. This jacket is going to hit my mid hip, which actually has my full hip circumference almost. So I don't want this narrow bit to just be longer like that. I wanted to just widen it a little, but keeping the same angle that the hips were having here on the side. That is my reasoning for lengthening it this way. But if I was sewing on the waistband, I wouldn't have lengthened it. I just know I don't want that waistband and I want my jacket a little bit longer. Now, because I'm making another size a few years later, I'm not just gonna go ahead and assume everything's correct. You need to remeasure yourself. You have to start all over again. And I don't mind that because I really like the pattern. So let's have a look at the muslin. At this stage, I had already lengthened my pattern pieces. I did that before even sewing my muslin. And I'm going to show you a little bit about a tweak I'm doing to fit the bust better. I've got it pinned together. I didn't sew the facing on the center front. With this one, it's really easy to just cross over and have an idea of the fit because the seam allowance in the center is only 1/4 inch. So it's not like it's a big amount that could skew your fitting. I'm happy with the fit. I did tweak around with the curves inside here. On the inside, I had to let the seam allowance out on this curve only. Just about 1/4 inch right there at the fullest part of my bust, and I made the change to the pattern there. This curve stays the same, there's no change there, it's just on this one right here. I needed that tiny space. Now if I add 1/4 inch here, I end up adding 1/2 inch and then 1/2 inch there, which ends up being 1 inch extra, and that's all I needed. Otherwise, I'm happy with the shaping on the waist here. Where it goes in, it's actually at my waist height. I'm happy with the way the back fits also. It goes in at the waist. I find the shoulder fit is good. It's right at my shoulder there. It's not dropped. Now the sleeve has a deep hem there. I've just got it sewn with black thread. It's quite deep. And when I fold it up, it's perfect for my arms. So I don't need to change that. You know, these patterns are designed for a B cup. I'm a C cup. So I can get away with doing small modifications like this instead of doing a full-blown full bust adjustment, which would take quite a few steps to do in a style like this where you have double panels. But if you can get away with adding a tiny bit of seam allowance just where you need it to add 1 extra inch across the front, like half here, half there, that was all I needed, and I think it really improved the fit. So I did the same thing last time in 2019. For sewing, I have quite a bit to show you. You're gonna see me back during the sewing because I need to explain some things. Let's look at the pattern pieces, interfacing, pocket flaps, seams, top stitching. So much to see in a little short clip. These little pocket flaps are just gonna make it look like it's got a pocket, but there's no pocket there. And you need 2 pairs, 2 that are not interfaced, 2 that are interfaced. So I've got my regular ones right there. And I'm going to block fuse the other ones. You can see my fabric has already been fused right there. And then I'm going to place my pattern piece and cut it. I'm going to use one of these as my pattern piece actually. The fabric sort of sticks to the interfacing and then I don't need to use any pins. And I'm going to do the same thing with my collar and my facing pieces. Just fuse the piece that I'm going to need first and then cut out my pattern pieces. Okay, so here I have one pair and another pair. I'm going to leave the layer that's interfaced on the outside because it's always going to look smoother. So I'm just going to place these right sides together and have them ready for later. These are all the pattern pieces for the Stacie jacket. They seem like they are a lot, but it's not really that bad. I've got them placed in a way that will make sense for you to see how it's going to come together. Over here on this side, we have all the front pieces. Side front, the middle front, and the center front, the yoke that's going to go on the top. Little pocket flaps, they are fake, so there's 4 pieces there, 2 pairs. This is the front facing right here. It's got a little curved shape there that's going to match that shape right here. This will be sewn after the yoke is sewn right there. So if you look at it now, this might look shorter, but it's just because you need the seam allowance, uniting all these 3 pieces first, sewn to the yoke before we put on the front facing. These are the back pieces. Center back on the fold, side back. You can see the shaping, how the darts have been removed and just turned into seams right there with the back princess seams and the double front princess seams. Love that. I've got the back yoke. In the pattern, it's just 1 layer, but I'm going to do the burrito method. It's just nicer. So I have a second layer in a print right there that you can see behind the main yoke there. Sleeves are just 1 piece. And the collar pieces are the same for the upper collar and the under collar. I've got both of them interfaced right there. This red piece would be the waistband. That's the piece that would go underneath all of this. I'm not going to sew it onto my actual jacket, but I did cut out the pattern piece, but it's not going to be in my final jacket. I found a lighter weight matching color, and I'm going to make some bias tape with that, and that's what I'm going to use to hem this. I want to show you how easy it's going to be to put these together. Like at the back, you have double notches there, and that will bring these 2 pieces together, so that's really easy. Here on the front, where you have a lot of pieces, it could get confusing to put them together because it might not be apparent in what direction these go. Like you could make a mistake and put it like that, same as with this one. But the notches here are very well placed, and it's going to help you put these together. You have notches here at the waist height right here, both at the side and then there, and there. On the side front, you have that one that's going to match that one. So if you wanted to make a mistake and put these the other way around, you're not going to have the notch there to match. So that should alert you straight away that something's not right. And then up here, you have a notch way up higher that's going to match the one from the center front. These notches are really helpful. I'm not cutting into them. I've just marked them all with a yellow coloring pencil dipped in water. They're also going to be hidden within the seam allowance and the serged edges, so they're not going to be seen. Some practical things I do before I sew is to separate them by sections. So I'm just going to put these 2 together, take my back yokes and just have them together in a pile. I know this all belongs to the back, so I don't get confused. Same as with these, I'm just going to put these all together and keep them together, so I know this is all for the front, this is all for the back. For this jacket, I'm going to use a universal needle number 90/14. I think it's the right weight for this type of fabric. It's medium weight. When I'm doing regular seams, this is my preferred stitch length. For medium weight fabrics like this, I wouldn't want to go smaller than this. And when I top stitch, I'm going to just increase that to 3.5 so that the top stitching is a little bit more visible. Before doing anything, as always, you know I like to stay stitch everything. It's not mentioned in the instructions. These are the 2 back necklines from the yoke pieces here. I have my main, and this is going to be the one that's inside. It's a leftover piece of a garment I've sewn the other day. I had a tiny amount, and it's nice and pretty. I think it goes together with this, and it's a great way to use up little scraps. This is the other pattern piece we want to stay stitch, and this is the front neckline. It's small because it's a front yoke, and as always, I'll be doing this directionally, starting from the shoulder and going into the center for both of them. And for the back, I'll start here and go towards the middle. So I'll do one side, flip the fabric, and then do the other side. To stay stitch, I'm using my regular stitch length, and this pattern on the neckline uses 1/4 inch, so I really have to keep this very close to the edge. You can see how loosely woven linen is and how badly it wants to stretch out and start fraying, so this is super important. I have my pocket flap pieces right sides together, one interfaced, one non-interfaced. Now when we sew these together, we only use 1/4 inch seam allowance, which I find genius. I've already pinned them right sides together. I've sewn one and already flipped it. You can see the interface side there. That's going to be the visible side, and the non-interfaced will be underneath. You can see this is nice. I need to press this and top stitch that, of course. The nice thing about this is that this seam right there uses a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We leave the top end raw because that will be within the seam of the front and the yoke. So really easy. I'm going to use my 1/4 inch presser foot to sew this. It's going to make it much easier. You'll see that when I get to corners, I don't pivot. I just keep going and then pick up on the other side because I think having an intersection of seams in the corners is stronger than just a pivot. Okay, there you can see the seams intersecting. Now to flip this, I'm going to fold the seam allowances onto each other towards the non-interfaced flap like this. I'm going to just hold that firmly and flip it, and you'll get a nice little crisp corner right there. Same as on this side, fold it towards the non-interfaced flap. And then with this little one, I'm just going to push it from the back. And you get that little point right there. I'm going to head over to the iron and give these a good press. That's how they look, nice and neat and pressed. I'm going to be top stitching in 2 rows, and I've already got the 1/4 inch presser foot there. I've used it to sew on the seams. So I'm going to do that top stitching first. I'm not changing my thread to top stitch. I'm using the same one that is going to be used for all the seams. After doing this one, I'll repeat with the other pocket flap. Then I can change to my blind hem presser foot with the needle to the left, and that is really good for edge stitching. It's going to turn out super neat in the end. This is how it looks after it's been top stitched. Here are the front yoke pieces. I have them right sides up, and I have my little flaps that I've just sewn. On the wrong side, you'll see some notches. So what I'm going to do is place these ones right sides together like this, and just place the edges of the flap against the notches here. So basically the raw edge of the pocket is against the raw edge of the yoke. I'm going to base this in place and just keep it there. Okay, here I have the center front pinned right there, matching the notch right at the top, and then the one around the waist. Up here, once all of this is sewn, is where we're going to sew the yoke, and you can see that once all these seam allowances are removed and everything is sewn, you're going to have the same width here of this front piece with the yoke. That's where the pocket has been basted on, so it's coming together nicely. After sewing these longish seams, I'm going to go over to the serger and neaten all of these seams. There are 4 of them in total. Then we're going to press all the seam allowances towards the middle front piece and top stitch. I'll be doing that in double rows everywhere. While I'm serging, I'm going to try not to trim anything away because I have already sewn my seam, and these only use 3/8 seam allowance, so that is plenty. I don't need to trim the seam allowances smaller than this. 3/8 is actually my favorite seam allowance to use. It's not bulky, and it's just enough to hold your 2 fabric layers together. Okay, so these edges are all serged neatly. Make sure that the seam allowances are going towards the middle front right there. I'm just going to put a pin so I remember. I'm going to use my blind hem presser foot first and do the edge stitching. I'll do this side, then I'll do that side, then on the other front, and then swap my presser foot for the 1/4 inch presser foot. Here is one of the front pieces already finished, top stitched and pressed. It looks really nice. This is going to complete the armhole there, and this is the rest of the center front right there. Now we just have to put these together like this, right sides together, and when it's sewn, this is going to go up like that, and the pocket flap is going to come from within this next seam. There's that seam already serged. It's quite bulky right here because we have the pocket flap and one of those layers is interfaced. Now this seam allowance is going to go up towards the neckline right here, going up. And just as I'm doing everywhere, I'm going to top stitch this also on the edge, and then with a 1/4 inch. That is how this is going to look. Flap is fake, there's no pocket. Now we can assemble our back piece. The back is simple. It's got a side back, 2 of them, and then the center back is just 1 piece on the fold. Just open it up and align these double notches that we have here, and this one on the other side over here. So it's only 3 pieces for the back. They are straight-ish. They still have a slight curve here everywhere, but they're not hard to sew. And we use the same 3/8 seam allowance we've been using all along. After sewing these 2 seams, I'm going to head over to the serger and tidy them up. This is the top section of all the back unit completed. Side back, center back, side back, and these have the seam allowances pressed towards the center also, just like we did with the front pieces. At this point, having the back done, if you just want to do a single layer of the back yoke, then you would just put your yoke and your back piece right sides together, sew it, press the seam up, serge it, top stitch, all of that. But I just want to elevate the jacket and do it in a double layer burrito style. Here we have the wrong sides out. There's the inner yoke that's going to be on the inside, enclosing the shoulder seams very neatly, and at the back it's enclosing this back seam. Now remember, I didn't want to add that hemband. I didn't want to fold it up either because the hem, you know, the pieces are nicely shaped and curved. So I thought by having some bias tape facing hem would be a really nice finish. I've done that before, so let's see a little bit about that. I've cut 2 pieces of fabric on the bias, 2 inches, so that when I put it through the bias tape maker, I end up with 1 inch finished with the both folds. I'm gonna have to piece them together. This is a rayon linen blend. It matches the color of my jacket. That was why I chose it. It's also lightweight. I don't want that hem to be bulky, so I think it's a really nice fabric for it. Okay, so I want to unite these. You know, I like to sew them diagonally because this is the grain line actually. This is where it's strong. If I just sew them like that, I'm sewing on the bias and then it can end up stretching out. So this is not cut properly, so I'm just going to take one of the little fibers here with my seam ripper and pull it out, and then I know exactly where the grain line is. So I'm going to do that with both of these. So I have this on the grain, I have this on the grain, and now I can just put these together like this. If you are going to do the waistband, then this is just extra. You wouldn't need to do this. You wouldn't be hemming everything with a bias tape, but this is the way I'm going to do mine. So that's how that looks pieced. It's pieced on the grain, so the seam is diagonal, and it's the best way to join bias pieces. This is the bias tape maker I'm going to use. It says 25 millimeters at the back, equivalent to 1 inch. Okay, here's my bias tape made. It's 1 inch wide. I'm going to be using this folded edge as a guide to sew this onto the hem. This is the right side of the garment, and this is where I had turned it, but I'm going to flip it back out. That's why I couldn't sew this all the way down, so I removed the basting stitch partially. And I'm going to grab my tape and just put it inside a little bit so that this covers it. You don't need to put it all the way to the end, that's just too bulky. But a little distance is good. So this will be behind the facing once we flip it again, and it'll be hidden. So I'm just going to go all the way along the bottom, pinning it together here. You can see I used the same seam I had done just to pick up the binding there. And now I'm going to understitch. I'm going to keep the seam allowance underneath my bias tape just like that, and sew on the edge. Okay, there's the understitching done all the way up to there, and now we can flip this again like we've done before. Just hold it. And now you see this binding is going to be behind the facing. It's going to be neat. You won't see it from the outside. Now that the binding is there, I can actually sew this center front facing that had been just pasted on. So here on the top, I'm just going to start right at the edge where the collar is, and I'm not going to back tack. When I did that seam there, it caught the binding underneath, so that's nice and safe. And I think it looks really pretty. It looks very nice, very neat. I'm always happy with bias tape hems. I think it's a really good alternative for a curved hem. Now, I'm not showing you anything about the collar because I already have a video on the channel showing you how to do that. This is the thumbnail. It's really, really easy. I've sewn quite a few patterns that have this technique. It is the exact same thing, so have a look at that. I didn't really include the sleeves here, but I have a video showing you how I like to set in woven sleeves. It's always the same way that I do it, so have a look at this one here. Here is my Stacie jacket. I have worn this a lot and I love this color. The magenta is so nice. I really want you to see the texture of the fabric. It's just so, so beautiful. I really love it. I have a little bit left over for a pencil skirt eventually. So this is a super easy to sew collar, the outer collar, the inner collar. This facing, as I mentioned, is not too wide. So when you wear your jacket, you're going to see this little bit right there. Here we have the seam of the front yoke, and then we have 3 seams over there. You can see the shaping here and the space that this gives you for the bust right there. Fake pocket flap. I did a buttonhole, but just just so that you can see it, but I didn't cut through it. I just sewed the button right on top. And these are buttons that match that I found in my stash. Eventually, I do want to find something nicer, but they are the exact same color and I think they're pretty discreet right there. Remember, whenever I want to choose my buttonhole placement, I try my jacket on, find my bust height, put a mark there because there has to be a button right at my bust height, and then I calculate the distance up and down, but that is the most essential one so you avoid gaping. Inside, my inner layer of the yoke is a contrast fabric. I've been using this for a lot of things and that just saves me on the main fabric. I really did want to have enough left for a pencil skirt, so if I can do an inner yoke like this, I'll be sweet. At the back, here is the yoke, and there's the side pieces, the central piece and the side. There is a lot of top stitching here. The color was almost the same. I think it looks really, really nice. And I find top stitching really, really fun. Here's the sleeve. Here is it folded up. If you fold it down, it'll just be extra long, but you can see how deep the hem allowance is. It's all that. I have the bias tape that I made as a hem facing. Being on the bias means it's going to mold to the curve of the bottom of the jacket really, really well, and I'm not going to get puckers as if I would if I just left extra length and tried to fold it up. So I'll never regret the extra work that this takes. I think it makes a huge difference. So happy. I had so much fun making this. You know, if I could make these types of jackets every week, I'd be super happy. You'll see it on with two types of dresses. One outfit is a little bit more toned down than the other. This is my magenta color Stacie jacket from Stacie. To compensate for not having that waistband there at the hem, I just added a little bit of length to the jacket to end up with sort of the original length. I've got it over my neat Luna dress from Love Notions, matching handbag. I think the fit of this jacket is really good because there's a lot of pattern pieces here that give shaping on the front and the back. It is possible to wear this clothes. It is a fitted jacket. I would rather wear it open. I really like this length, long sleeves, and this cuff is achieved by a really deep hem allowance, that's all. The collar is super easy to sew and there are fake pocket flaps there, so no real pocket. At the back there's a yoke, sort of squashed by my handbag though, and some seams that incorporate darts at the back, so fit is really, really good there. You could button this all the way up, but I never will. I really love this type of jacket style. It's like a denim type of jacket, but not in denim, and it's not boxy. I really love it in this linen fabric. It's one of my faves and I've worn it a lot. Here is my Stacie jacket over another dress. Now I didn't plan it, but this Flossom dress from Pattern Emporium has the exact tone of magenta in the print there, and I think it goes really well. So I think this is a great option for a type of color that is sort of harder to style. Here you can see it fully buttoned up. I would never wear it like that. Another look at the yoke, and I got a closer look at the seams at the front and the fake pocket flap. All these things are easy to sew. There's a lot of top stitching, but it's a lot of fun. I think the sleeve and shoulder fit is really, really good. And I just love how this looks, the printed bold dress underneath this jacket. I think it's an outfit that sort of would stand out, and I'm not mad about that. I think the outfit with the black and white houndstooth Luna dress from Love Notions is a bit more toned down, I suppose, more subdued. Then the second outfit, I know it's not for everyone. I know a lot of people are not comfortable going out in so many colors and like that. It's not like that for me. It's fine for me, and it's also got to do with my context here in Brazil. A lot of people dress like that here. At least where I live, it's not uncommon to see women in red, in like bold colors. So it's not like you're going to stand out a lot. Yeah, I'm just happy I had a matching handbag and I've really enjoyed it. I wore this once, really, really simple, with a black dress underneath and a colorful scarf. So there's a lot of ways that you can wear something like this. You know, if you don't want to be so loud, just wear it with solid stuff, jeans, a simple white top underneath. You know, you can tone this down a lot. But, you know, I like to dress up for my lookbooks, so hope you enjoy seeing those. There are a lot of jean jacket patterns out there. Just always think when you see them that you don't have to make them in denim if you think that's too casual or it's too like young. I don't know. Some people think that that stuff is for teenagers. I don't believe that. I do wear denim jackets. Just think that you can make them out of linen. Fabric choice can make a style like this look really dressy, which is what I'm trying to achieve, and I'm so happy with this one. Sew arc, it's never a teaching pattern. You know, you get a little list of instructions, maybe one diagram. You do need some sewing experience to sew these. You're not going to find any instructions that are going to tell you exactly what to do. I hope this was fun to watch. I tried to include a lot of things like fitting, pattern changes. I know those things are helpful for you. The basic sewing techniques. I hope you are not scared of top stitching. Everything in this jacket is easy. The collar, you know, the pocket is fake. It's all very, very easy if you just go step by step. There's nothing in here that is super hard to do at all. Sew arc does not have an affiliate program. I have no connection to the brand at all. They don't know I'm making this video. I don't get paid for doing this. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on all this fun content. I'll see you again very soon. Bye.